Did the Lakers have the best offseason? I want to know your take on this first, Jack.
Yeah, so I thought that even if they didn't have the best, I think that they were right there in the teams that improved the most, because you look at it at the beginning of the offseason, and I think a lot of people had concerns about the Lakers, what they were going to look like going into next year and what they were going to do this offseason, because they were losing, or Rondo's contract was up, KCP's contract was up, Dwight Howard's contract was up, and all those guys played huge roles for them this past season. Avery Bradley is another guy, and the question was, how are they going to bring them back? How are they going to make the money work? And what's their plan? Amazingly, not only did they come back just as good, they came back even better, in my opinion. They went out and got the 2 6-man of the year candidates in Dennis Schroder and Montrezl Harrell. And really quickly on Montrezl Harrell, I've never been a huge fan of his, but if there's anybody that his game works perfectly with, it will be Anthony Davis, a top of the line big in the league. Anthony Davis can also stretch the floor and shoot it. So, Harrell can be down low in the paint, and Anthony Davis can play around the key or around the 3-point line. And then on defense, you could have Harrell guard the 4 and AD guard the 5. So I thought that was a perfect fit. And then to offload Danny Green's contract, who a lot of Lakers fans hated last postseason, and to replace him with Wesley Matthews, I thought was a huge W. They brought back Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and now they have Anthony Davis lined up for either a Supermax extension or a 1-and-1 player option if Giannis doesn't sign the Supermax. And who knows, if Giannis doesn't sign, you left yourself enough leeway next season, you can make a bid at him. So I give Rob Pelinka all the credit in the world. I think that even last year, he did a great job recovering after Kawhi made his decision so late, and they thought that they were in on him, so they had to scramble. And over the past year and a half, he's just done a masterful job.
You said a lot there, Jack, and the Lakers, they are a good pick, and I think they had one of the best off seasons, but I think Atlanta's off season was a little better just for the simple fact they filled a lot of holes that they needed to fill. And I think for the importance of, because LA, they just won a chip last year. So how much can they really get better? But I feel like with Atlanta, they were one of the worst teams in the league last year, and now getting Rondo, who can not only help the team but help Trae Young in his further development. They get Chris Dunn, who will be able to play D in that backup point guard spot. You get Bogdan, you bring in Clint Capella last year, and then you pick up, you get John Collins back, another full season. You get Cam Reddish, you got DeAndre Hunter, you got all these young guys. So now you got a new team with Lloyd Pierce, who's still a young coach. You got all these guys developing together. I think this team definitely had one of the best off seasons. I also think Philly had a great offseason with the fact that last year they had a team that was just scrambling. They didn't know, they had pieces everywhere. They didn't know what they wanted to do. Now you bring in Danny Green, you bring in Seth Curry, who are shooters, knockdown shooters. Danny Green, who's also still can play at a high level on defense. You bring in those guys to complement Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. So I think those two teams had the best offseason so far.
I don't agree that Atlanta had the best offseason. Maybe they might make the playoffs, and that's a question that we're going to answer later on in the show. But I think the Lakers did have the best offseason. They clearly needed something different. You mentioned Danny Green. Danny Green, this guy was trending on Twitter every other day because he was in some sort of shooting slump. They replaced Danny Green with Wesley Matthews, and I feel like they're the same type of player. Wesley Matthews and Danny
is a better
Green,
version of Danny Green at this point. At this point
I
in his
think they
career.
might be kind of around the same. But bottom line is that you replaced a guy with another guy. They're pretty much the same. Their game styles are the same. You mentioned KCP re-signing. That was a great move as well. But also, you get Dennis Schroder, a guy who shot, I believe, 39% from the three, 38% from the three. He's a gritty, tough-nosed defender. He can come off the bench. He can start. He can accept any role. And then you have Montrezl Harrell, too, who I actually am high on him in the right system. And with the Lakers, he won't be asked to defend opposing bigs like he was with the Clippers. And the Clippers, they had him on Jokic. He was getting torched. But on the Lakers, they don't even have to do that anymore. The Lakers got better this offseason. They're planning to two-peat, and I think they can do it. You have Schroder, LeBron, Matthews, Harrell, Davis. KCP.
And they brought in Marc Gasol, too, another guy that I forgot about. So their three big man lineup last year was JaVale, Dwight Howard, and Anthony Davis. Coming into the season, JaVale and Dwight Howard were pretty much total question marks. And granted, they both, I think, exceeded expectations, at least in the regular season, and JaVale didn't perform in the playoffs.
But they were unplayable in that Rockets
Exactly.
series.
Now, you bring in Marc Gasol, who's been there with the Raptors. You know he has that championship DNA, and I think he can also stretch it better than Dwight Howard or JaVale McGee. And Montrezl Harrell, who I think just is one, a better player than either of those two guys, and two, will play much better next to Anthony Davis than either of those guys.
And Gasol can shoot, even though he had a slump with the Raptors in the playoffs.
I think that was more injuries than anything, though.
Yeah, but he could shoot. Bottom line is he could shoot.
Yeah.
And you still have Kuzma, who's totally gotten forgotten in all of this.
Oh my God.
He didn't get
Who
forgotten.
knows?
He sucks.
I don't think he sucks.
He definitely does not suck.
He's bad.
Here's the thing, and admittedly, I'm a big LeBron fan, but one thing that some LeBron fans do is they will tear down some of LeBron's teammates that don't deserve it. Kyle Kuzma, although he didn't have the best season last year or the season that people wanted him to have, he was solid. He was more than solid for the Lakers more often than not. And to have him now growing another year with all of that great veteran presence in the locker room, I'm excited to see what he can be in, not a huge role. He doesn't have to do too much. And another thing about the Schroder signing is one of the biggest question marks all playoffs long for the Lakers was their guard play. Who was going to pack that punch at the guard position? And every night it was a question mark. One night it was KCP. One night it was Danny Green. And when there was no guard play, they counted on LeBron or Anthony Davis to do it all, and that's just not sustainable. So to bring in Schroder, who you're going to get 18 a night from, that's a really nice cushion to bring in.
I think Dennis Schroder was a huge. I think it was one of the best steals of the all season. I'm not too high on Montrezl. I got to see it first for me to understand the Montrezl Harrell signing. But I think with Atlanta, the fact that they were so low last year and that they're now projected to be a pretty solid team with also, I don't know how I forgot this, the signing of Danilo Gallinari, who I think is probably the equivalence of getting Dennis Schroder in the trade. I think those two guys are going to be huge for their teams, but I think getting Danilo Gallinari, a guy who has made the playoffs last year, he had a really solid year. I think getting him in that lineup for the Hawks is going to be huge because now you have shooters at almost every position. And now you look at that team, Atlanta, they have defensive players almost at every position, point guard, forwards, centers. They have shooters, point guards, forwards, centers. So you got a team that's well-rounded in a sense. So I think filling those holes so fast in a short offseason, I think that's why they had the best offseason.
I see your point. They're at two totally different places right now.
They're in two different scenarios. Atlanta's trying to be relevant, and the Lakers are trying to win a championship. I think it's hard to get better as a championship team, but the Lakers somehow managed to do it and get significantly better at that. They still have Caruso, too.
And in their cap situation, which, they did not have a lot of room to operate, and I don't know that you're going to find many guys. Correct me if I'm mistaken. They got Montrez for 2 years, almost 18, 19 million.
8.5.
You're not going to find many guys better for that money.
So early prediction for you guys, a question.
To be fair, his market was really low.
After the
Charlotte
playoffs.
offered him $19 million.
Really?
Yeah.
Charlotte offered Gordon Hayward 30.
I think that he went to the Lakers solely to prove a point.
So quick question to you guys, real quick. Will the Lakers two-peat?
If I had to bet on it today, I would feel most confident putting my money on the Lakers.
I think they should be the favorites unless the Nets get James Harden. I think right now, though, it should be them, Nets, Clippers, but I think LA is number one right now. They should be the favorites.
I agree. I think the Lakers should be the favorites unless James Harden goes to the Nets.
My big reasoning for it
surpass them as the favorites, in my opinion.
Or James Harden goes to Philly.
A big question.
Hold on, Jack. I wouldn't. I don't. James Harden going to Philly doesn't make them the favorites.
If you swap him for Ben Simmons, if it's Harden, Tobias Harris, Danny Green, Joel Embiid, Seth Curry, guys like that, I think they could become the favorites.
Nah, I don't think so.
The big reason that I say the Lakers is because coming into this season, a huge question for them was what was LeBron going to be? Because you didn't know what AD was either. And I think AD showed this season that even if LeBron isn't the LeBron that we know, AD can take over games. There's no question about it. He did it for most of the regular season, and I think in the playoffs it was a little bit more LeBron than Anthony Davis, but we know Anthony Davis can do that, and he is also one of, if not the biggest matchup issue in the NBA.
Yeah,
There's
I agree.
Maybe like him, Bam Adebayo, and Giannis are the only three similar type players in the league.
I agree, and I think going into the 2020-2021 season, LeBron and AD are the top two players in the world. I know you guys gave me a lot of pushback for that one of these last episodes, but I do believe that LeBron and AD are the top two players in the world, and Anthony Davis is the second best player in the world.
And even though we didn't agree, I think we all agreed AD was undisputably top 5.
No, you didn't.
I believe I did.
No, me and you were tossing around if he was, because the top 5 is very. Me and you were tossing around him in the 5-6 range.
No other team has two guys of that caliber.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Well, if James Harden goes to the Nets, yeah.
That's a whole different story. Don't get us started on that again.
They do have the best duo in the league, though. The Lakers.
100%.
Yeah, I expect them to either get to the Western Conference Finals or win the championship. Obviously, Laker fans, it's championship or bust, and I feel like that's how the league should feel. That's how the fans should feel.
This is going to be the first time in a while the Lakers are, heavy favorites going in, and they're going to be championship or bust. I think, a couple other teams in Milwaukee made some good transitions. They made some, getting Drew Holiday, the Clippers getting Serge Ibaka, so they now have his, big man who could play defense. Phoenix getting Chris Paul, a lot of good things, but I think LA and Atlanta, and I think those two for me would be the top two teams that really showed some difference this offseason.
Hey, what's up, guys? You just finished watching a clip of the Pick a Side podcast. My name is Joel Moran.
My name is Jack Barteck.
And my name is River Brown.
And we are your hosts for this podcast. We want to thank you guys for watching the clip. Like, subscribe, and comment, and share if you would care to, because it helps us grow. And we're trying to make this a full-time thing. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for supporting, and see you next time.